So it is my pleasure to introduce you to Mr. Aman Mittal, a valued personal friend and a leader in internationalization in Indian higher education. Mr. Mittal serves as Director of International Relations at Marketing at LPU, Lovely Professional University, considered among the largest private universities in India. Aman received his undergraduate degree in engineering from Thapar Institute of Engineering and Technology and his MBA from University of Southampton in the UK. As a member of the family that founded LPU, Aman has had a front row seat not only on the birth and growth of a prominent institution of higher education, but also for the opportunities and challenges that the higher education sector faces in India and overseas. I have known Mr. Mittal for over 10 years now, and this is no exaggeration. What impresses me most about him is his work ethic. Very, very, very strong and positive work ethic. Indeed, I often bring him up as a positive role model for work ethic with my family and friends. My sister, my cousins, all of them here examples of Aman's work ethic. Uh, Very good work ethic. Notwithstanding my personal affection and respect for Mr. Mittal, the reason he is here today is to share his experiences of internationalization at LPU. I've requested that he be prepared to share the pluses as well as the downsides of the internationalization efforts he has led for many years. In doing so, our goal is to get you to think deeply about the issues related to working, operating, and succeeding in a global economy. The format for today's interaction will be that I will start by asking some questions, and then we will open the floor for questions from students. With that, please join me in welcoming Mr. Mittal to our class.
Thank you, Vishal. I mean, I'm really humbled with the introduction that you're giving me. I don't know. You've been really, really very liberal with your words, but thank you for all the kind words that you spent. And very good evening to all the students of the IM Kashipur who are joining us today in the evening. As Vishal told you that we are, I mean, I know him for a very long time. It's been 10 years, and I know Vishal for a lot of work that we do on the internationalization. And I can tell you, you got one strong academician, strong practitioner of management theory who's taking your classes. I mean, he's a very tough guy. I've seen him with a group of students who he brought from US to India for an Indian experience. And the way he handled the students was fantastic.
Thank you, Aman.
And the kind of collaboration we've been able to develop with Vishal uh, has been very, very phenomenal. So thank you, Vishal. I'm looking forward for this interaction with the students. And I would like to, I mean, I would love to share whatever experience I have, a small experience that I have in the international market with the students of IM Kashipur.
Thank you,
So go
Aman.
ahead.
And I will
Thank you.
start with the first question. Can you share with the audience something about your current professional life? What do you do professionally and your personal life? Just brief information so that students know a little bit more about you.
Yeah. So I don't know. So students, as Vishal introduced, I head the various initiative from the university, lovely professional university. I'm part of the leadership team and also part of the founding family members who have started this university. I don't know how many of you know about Lovely Professional University. This is the largest university in the country right now in terms of the total student strength. We have some 35,000 full-time students studying in our university campus, which is located in Jalandhar, just outside Jalandhar, I would say, in Punjab. And we offer almost all the programs, including engineering to management, pharmacy to physiotherapy to hotel management, and everything, minus the nursing, medicine, and dentistry. So there are 200 plus programs that we offer. And recently, we have been ranked among the top 100 universities of the country as well. And our management program is among the top 50 in the country. So that's a bit about the university. My personal role is to get the business. I should not be using the word business when you're dealing in education. Uh, but I think I'm talking to the management students. So I'm taking the liberty of using the word business because I think that would be more relevant. So my responsibility is to get the business to the university. So right from the whatever you see online, offline, print, television, which which rates the brand Lovely Professional University out in the market is my responsibility. Ensure that there's the right branding of the university across the globe, in India or outside India, is my responsibility. Ensuring we get the right applications to the university is my responsibility. Ensuring that we have the right students coming to the university is my responsibility. And I personally very closely take care of our international opportunities and business. We have a very large international student community. We have students coming from 50 different countries, from 35, we have 3,500 plus international students coming from 50 different countries. I mean, that's another big diversity that a university offers. None in the country. I would say none in the country. I know you guys are from IIM Kashipur, and there are IITs, there are institutions which are much older than us, but none have been able to bring such a global diversity in the campus ever in the Indian university. And we have been able to do it because our perspective was to be a global university in Punjab, not one of the university in Punjab. And we are inching towards our goal. And I also take care of a lot of the international research project. Recently, we have got a European Union. I don't know, Vishal, you know about this or not. We got a European Union project where we are, LPU is the lead university, leading the 12 university consortium, and it's a €1 million project that we are executing. So I mean, it's an exciting work that I'm doing, all I can say is, and you know, one good part about my work is that there are no boundaries, both in terms of the geography and also the kind of area, because you have a huge world to play. And that's the great part about international business, that you can really innovate, you can create products that meet the global environment and go out and start marketing or selling those products. So, I mean, that's what I do, I mean, in a brief.
So Aman, congratulations on the EU project. We will be asking you a lot of questions today about LPU's internationalization. But before we go in that direction, can you briefly share about your childhood, college, and professional background so that students know a little bit about sort of your life before you got to where you were?
So I've come from a very humble background. We have seen those times when we were really, really young, when we didn't have two square meals to have. I mean, I'm coming from those background. There were times when we were really young, when we used to say that, okay, you have a, I mean, you can have a right, I mean, you can have lunch or a dinner. What do you want to have? So we are coming from that humble background. I studied in a very, very small school, which was close to my home. And we used to, I remember, you know, there used to be buggies where you have, I don't know, these guys know about it. So there was a buggies, which is a rickshaw, in which we all used to sit and go to the school. So I've seen those time and started in those schools, but I always wanted to be, I mean, I was always interested in science and engineering. So when I finished my grade 10th, then I decided to pursue my non-medical from Jalandhar itself, and I scored really well, touch wood. And I was the first engineer of the family to get into engineering college, and I made it to the Thapar Engineering Institute in Patiala, which is among the top 10 in the country now. And at that time, I did my electronics and communication engineering, and I could have joined back the business after I completed my engineering, but I decided to do the job. I went to Bangalore. I worked for Mindtree Consultancy and Wipro for almost like 1.5 years. And then then at that time, the institution was forming up. The education institution was forming up. Our family started doing really, really well, thanks to my father and uncles who worked really, really hard for our family to grow to that level. But at that time, we thought that we need to really grow, make this education really big for us. And then I went to UK. I did my Master of Business Administration from University of Southampton. And my area of specialization was education. My thesis was on total quality management in education. And it really helped me to shape up my thinking about education. That's why I'm so liberal to use business or getting the money in for the university, because I mean those are the terms that the university in UK uses. In India, it's kind of a sacred cow. You should not be using this word. I've been criticized by the fraternity about that, but I think I mean, if you start thinking too much about what people think and not in what you believe, you don't make it big. And as a person, as an organization, I always think that you need to think big to achieve big, and that's why uh, we always thought to do something really big in whatever domain we get into. And today, when most of the people were thinking about, I mean, we started we get into education in 2001 as a college, and in 2005 we were university. In 4 years' time, most of the people, even DAV University, DAV colleges, which is a 100 years old institution, they built a university after 100 years old, after they became 100 years old. But when we started thinking of getting into college, we said, no, we cannot be just college, we have to be university. So we always thought big, and that's our mantra, and that's the upbringing from which I'm coming through.
Having met your father and Uncle Aman, I can say that the vision is always to sort of aspire for the next big thing. So I would not be surprised if someday LPU also has a medical school and a nursing school as part of the LPU grant. That would not surprise me at all.
It is going to come for sure, Vishal.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. Now we will move to sort of the questions about internationalization. You are in the higher education industry. How has the Indian higher education sector been affected by globalization in your experience?
See, I should say that no, unfortunately, my lot of fraternity people use fortunately, but I'm using the word unfortunately. But the Indian higher education system is too governed by regulation, is too governed by the Indian regulation. Because of which the global players are not really allowed to come in and work here in this Indian environment, which is not a good thing. A lot of universities say that's a good thing. That's cutting off the competition. We will not have competition from global players. But I think that's an unfortunate part, because you always do better when you have a really competition coming from the other side, which is better than you. And I think the Indian education system is over-regulated, over-protected, and didn't allow the global players to come in. But saying that, when we as a university go out in the global market and recruit students from all across the world, we've been competing with the universities of. I mean, we are not targeting the people who wanted to go to US or UK or Australia. Our target is the students who want to go to Malaysia or China or the Asian countries, and there we have to compete a lot, and especially with China. China has a very different environment. They want to use the government machinery to bring the international students or international business in the country, and we've been really competing hard with them. By offering better quality of education, better infrastructure, and better support services, which China has not been able to do that. So, but again, we are a sole warrior. There are not many universities in India who are really going towards that global business, which is available. So it's challenging, but yes, I think. The global environment in the education institutions is yet to be experienced by many of the universities.
So, Aman, you've undertaken some very commendable efforts to internationalize LPU. Last weekend, our guest speaker talked about how their internationalization has not yet included sort of international student body, which you say LPU already has. And he also talked about how their nationalization efforts have not yet covered like internationalization of faculty, which I know you've been working towards. Can you share with the students some of the steps you've taken to internationalize LPU?
I think, internationalization, the word internationalization, specifically with respect to the education institution, cannot be just spoken with just the student body. I mean, rightly said, it has to be done with the with the faculty, with the kind of research that you're doing, with kind of the perspective that you have, even the curriculum that you are delivering to your domestic student is also part of the internationalization. And I think we have an international strategy put in place in the university, which is touching the student experience, the faculty experience, the business part of it, and as well as the outcome of the curriculum or of a particular program. So, I mean, we are touching all the four different pillars of the internationalization that's required in the education environment. And, uh, and I would say that we have been very successful in at least three areas. I would say with respect to international students, I've spoken a lot. I mean, we have been able to get very large hold of that. With respect to the international research, we have been really able to move out and say that we need to, I mean, as in the university, we are one of the university which has the highest international, beyond IITs, international money flowing in for the research project. We have won 3 Erasmus project. We have been working with China, with the Chinese Confucius Center, where the money is given for setting up the language center in the university. We are working with the McGill University on research on the area of agriculture and water sciences. So that is very, very strongly built in. And third is our curriculum. Our curriculum has been designed to create human resource for the global companies and the corporates. I mean, it's not that we look at what the Indian companies require, right from how we teach, how we evaluate students, what is the pedagogy, what kind of case studies we're giving to students. It's very global in nature. And fourth pillar, which is the faculty, which I think is somewhere we have been able to achieve a bit, but not substantially, is because of the lack of the faculty motivation to think themselves setting up in a global environment. Because you understand, Vishal, faculty movement is mainly driven between faculty to faculty relationship. I mean, somebody who starts working with you, you would like to invite him or her for some joint work. I mean, in India, I mean, that perspective is still missing because the motivation with the Indian faculty is not there to think on that level. But I think in all the other areas, we have been really doing great. We have a 200 plus collaboration, and most of them are very active collaboration with the international universities. None of the Indian universities have done it. And I don't think so. All this could be achieved by fluke. You have to plan it, and you have to be very consistent, and you have to learn new trick and experiment with the things. And there are not really many benchmarks which we can follow. So that's what I'm saying. It's a area where there are no boundaries, and you have to think innovatively when you're going for an international business.
Among the lack of international or global perspective among Indian faculty is something I hear quite often from my friends in Indian higher education sector. And I think maybe more needs to be done in sort of that sector to make the faculty global. But I will take this opportunity to open the floor for questions from the students. I have a list of questions, but we can always discuss my questions after the students' questions. So students, questions, the floor is yours. Anyone?
That's one part with respect to the virtual classrooms. You know, you cannot just look into the eyes and say, no, you have a question, you have to speak about it. But anyways, class, if you have any question related to the international business, may not be the education, very happy to answer that as well.
So Aman, as students are thinking about the questions, I'll sort of ask you one more question, and then hopefully they'll have questions. What are the challenges you faced in your internationalization? I know you talked about faculty challenge, but other than that, sort of challenges from students, from parents, or from the governments or competitors, what are some of the challenges you face?
I think the biggest challenge was with the city. We are based out of a very small city in Jalandhar. You know, when we started doing the internationalization plan, we really didn't considered the city limitation in our mind. We thought that, okay, we have a right support system within the university. We have the right support system with respect to the various departments. We have created the online system and everything is there. But we never realized that how the city is going to respond to the international students who are going to come to their to this city, start using the buses, start renting the places around the campus, and going to the restaurants and eating food. And I think that was a challenge because a city like Jalandhar has never seen any international students. They have seen few visitors coming from US and UK because we have an NRI belt, but they've never seen that kind of thing. And I think it took the city some time to accept the international students, which we never planned. We never thought that that could be a challenge. And I mean, I always thought that this is something, I mean, there are a lot of other challenges which I could speak about, but I thought that to give the student a perspective that there could be a challenge which was never thought about, which comes out to be one of the bigger challenge. I mean, the students were not, were finding difficulties in finding an accommodation in a city like Jalandhar because people were not ready to rent them the houses. People were, the restaurants were not offering the food that was not giving them the food, but they were not giving the food which is required for that continental palate. The food was too spicy and it's not going as per the palate. I think it took the city to come out of it. Now I can see my international students speaking in Punjabi. Then when they hire when they take a tuk-tuk, or when they go out in the city, that they started even bargaining with them. So I think it was a one big challenge that we could really prepare our environment, but how to prepare an environment which is beyond our control. But what we did is we really put a student support team who's going to go out and find the accommodation for them outside the university as well, who will find them, speak to the few restaurant people and say that, okay, this is kind of food that they would like, and it can help you grow your sales. That was one big challenge. Secondly, of course, in India, as I said, it's over-regulated. In India, it's a very, I don't know, it's very stupid, I should say it. It's a thing called FRRO. All the foreigners, they need to register themselves with the police station as they land in India. You know, as in Vishal, you've been in India for a long time. Now, if you come here and as you say, within 14 days, you have to go to the police station, register yourself and get an ID proof that I'm a valid foreign visitor in India and I'm a student here. You would be shocked. I mean, you don't want to go to the police station. I would not like to go to police station. None of these people would have, even all these students that you have in the class, I don't know, even one or two of them have even visited police station ever in their life. And we're asking the foreigners to visit them within 14 days of landing in India when they're from a shock of a cultural shock, away from the families, homesickness and blah, blah stuff. So I think that was another challenge. We have to kind of, and you know, I mean, dealing with the Indian police system is difficult, especially for a foreigners, it would be impossible. So we try to create that environment for them. And thirdly, which is very big challenges, there are not too many players who in an education system who want to go out and present as an international player. So we are in an exhibition. I was in China. We were in an exhibition where there were 100 stalls of Russia, 200 stalls from the US universities, 50 stalls from the German universities, and only one stall from India of LPU. See, I mean, we were not even able to get that eyeballs and at the respect that needed for the Indian education system. So I think being an early stage starter has its plus and minuses. Plus is that we've been able to get in the market quickly and kind of capture it in a way that largest number of Bhutanese students outside the Bhutan in any of the world than in any of the world is at only at LP campus. So we have those advantages, but there are a lot of difficulties in kind of going out and telling the people, no, Indian higher education system is a good system, try it and believe in this thing. So those were the challenges, but we have overcome that quite a lot, I would say. And one interesting story, which probably these kids would be, these students would be interested to know. You know, my first travel to the international market was to Africa. And I landed in a country called DR Congo. I don't know how many of you know about it. I landed into this country, and there was a small exhibition that was planned by one of our African friend. We landed into Kinshasa, the city, the capital of DR Congo, and we were supposed to be picked up by this African friend into the airport. Nobody speaks English. It's a French country, and everybody has huge guns in their hand. It's a disturbed country, and we were there, and there was nobody to pick us up, and it's like, oh my God. And I was only with one of my colleagues. And I said, we are being duped by an African guy and we are in trouble. And we see these police people coming to us and approaching us saying that, hey friend, I have a gun. Do you want any help? Blah, blah stuff. And we were, I'm using the word shit scared, but was actually have a shit scared that time. And but 2 hours after that, guy came up and helped us out. And as we were moving out of the airport, the police guy said that, give me $500, I have a gun with me. I mean, that was an experience of Africa, but I would say that was one of a kind experience, but I had a fantastic experience after that. And so I think all I can say is you need to go out of the comfort zone if you want to achieve big. Had I not done that, I would not have entered into the African market at all.
That's interesting, Aman. That's an interesting example. I'm glad you brought up Congo. I was planning to share with students an article about Congo that the Italian ambassador there was recently killed.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I thought that most of them have no idea what Congo is. So I didn't share, but I'm glad you brought it up. It gives me an excuse to share with them next time. But questions from the class?
Yes, sir.
Pratik, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, sir. First of all, thank you very much for coming in. My question is regarding the exchange program, student exchange program, where Indian students are sent abroad for not necessarily the entire duration of the course, but just for either one term or for a couple of days. So how important do you think an exchange program plays a role in the marketing aspect when it comes to inviting students from abroad or sending our students there?
Pratik, thank you for asking question. I would say that no, there are two parts of it. One is that on the how the international exchange programs are important with respect to the students' experience. I would say, I mean, for me, whenever we design something, it is most importantly planned with respect to the student experience. The student exchange program gives a huge exposure to our students in a shortest possible time. So, for a student perspective, it's a fantastic thing. But at the same time, with the marketing, it's a great card to play, but we never have played that. Oh, we are a university which provide you a great student exchange, and that's why you need to join us. But I think in the end, it's a great experience, but it's very difficult to create those programs. We have every year almost 150 students who go for a student exchange for a semester to 1 year, and every time when they come back, they thank us a lot. That no, they have been able to create some great friends, able to get some great insight into that country. So I think if you're asking, is it a great program? Yes. Should the university use it as a great marketing tool? We have not used it as a great marketing tool so far.
Aman, I'll build on that question and ask, you have a 35,000 student body. 100 students going on study exchange programs overseas does not look like a big number. What do you think prevents more Indian students from taking advantage of these programs?
I think the Indian community or Indian students from which I have also come up, they are still very protective lot. We have 300 opportunities for exchanges, but only 150 gets fructify every year. So we are only able to fulfill 50% of our seats, which we could have done it. I think the parents are too protective. I mean, parents are not really understand that how much value a student exchange program can give to them, and they need to come out of that protective shell of the students. I think that's one big part of it. And secondly, I think Indian education system, they don't really see education as an investment, it's still as a cost. And when student exchange happen, they still need to spend money on the airways, the air tickets, and accommodation living, and they think that it's another cost attached to it, but they not understand that's an investment they're making for the on their education program. So, and in India, it is not I mean, it's not a very, I mean, you don't hear about students going for student exchange. It's not very common for them to it. So there's not many success stories. I mean, if more and more universities start offering these opportunities to students, so the trust level and the parents would be more comfortable to take it out. So I would say these are the two big reasons.
Other questions from the class?
Hello, sir. I have a question. It might not be directly related to what you're saying, but since you quoted the incident from Congo, I just had this thought in my mind that sometimes, like whenever we are visiting if a country or a region where we are supposed to, spend some time, we try to learn the language or try to learn the nuances and try to fit in, at least for the part of duration that we are there. So what about the tolerance to cultural appropriation, so as to say? Like in certain countries have a very low tolerance of culture appropriation. And how does this factor play into the places that we plan these trips to,
Thank
or,
you.
for students?
See, Ankit, thank you for asking this question. Ankit, I would always say that, no, I was speaking to Vishal just before the class was to begin. I mean, there's a one word which is called relation. And relationship is very important when you're doing an international business. In China, there's a word called guangxi, which means relation. And people say, no guangxi, no business. So in the end, you have to build that guangxi, that relationship with people. And knowing a language or a culture of that particular country is very, very, very important. I mean, see, if somebody, foreigners come and say hello to you in your own language, it would be a very different, I mean, you instantly make some connection. So I think if you know a bit about the country and about the people and the culture or the geography, it definitely helps you to connect with the people and in terms to build a stronger relationship. And stronger relationship means a better business and a long-term business. So it's very, very crucial to build that relationship when you're doing with the international business.
And I can vouch for what Aman said in terms of relationship, right? Our relationship really started when we had the opportunity to bring students from America to LPU campus. And if you don't have that relationship, you don't have the trust, right, on both sides. And so without sort of trust, then trust and relationship sort of feed each other in my view. And I can tell you this, the students had the best experience at LPU when they visited, but the city, as Aman said, fell very short on delivering, like there's no cleanliness, there's no infrastructure in the city. The campus, the students were the most happiest. So I think there is a disconnect in terms of, is India ready for sort of, foreign visitors, foreign students, foreign faculty? And, I think I find that the readiness is not there yet, Aman. What do you think in the cities?
See, Vishal, I think it's a how should I put it? I mean, it's a long-term thought of the government. I mean, government has, I don't know if you know about it, there's a new collaboration bill that the Indian government is trying to bring in, and they're showing their intent that they want to do something on the internationalization. But the draft policy, which I've just gone through it yesterday, it's absolutely crap. The closed door, I would say that. So I think the Indian government has to first realize that international education, international tourism could be a really big business. For Australia, I mean, you would watch for it, even for the US, the international student education system brings huge dollars to the country. And for Australia, is the second biggest export. For US, I was reading, is the sixth or seventh biggest export. So until the country or the government realize that it can be a big money earner for the country, they will not start working on it. And definitely our cities need to evolve a lot before we really can say that I'm happy to bring in more international students. I really want to promote few programs in the US and Europe, especially around the yoga and Ayurveda and other things. I know there's a market, but they are looking at more than just a program. They want India as an experience as well. and I think somewhere I will not be able to justify their experience there. So our hands also get tied, and I really hope that Indian government is doing their bit, but with the amount of work that we need to catch up, we need to do a lot, and we're not doing that much, unfortunately.
Agreed. Completely agreed with you, Aman. I'm going to ask if other students have questions.
Hello, sir. My name is Sumit. So I have a question. Basically, I've seen many of my friends going to US, Australia, or European countries in search of higher education, rather say in search of a good salary package, which they get an opportunity only if they go for higher education from a foreign country. So what is your say on that? My first question. And other question, in India, basically the government and all the top heads take pride that most of the CEOs in the global Fortune 500 companies are Indian origin, but we forget that they are actually have gone to outside foreign countries for higher education and then joined there as a top-notch management guy. So what is your say on that?
Sumit, I'm glad you asked this question, because no, that's a very interesting question. And the answer, you in your question also, you have also pushed in the answer, because most of the students who go out for studies in US and UK don't go for higher education studies in US and UK. They go there to find a better opportunities after their higher education system. So I think it is not the higher education system which has failed them, but I think it is the education. Just 1 second. But I think it is the Indian industries, Indian environment which has failed them and pushed them to the foreign shores to find those jobs or business opportunities. I mean, rightly said, we feel pride that no, Mr. Nadella and there's so many other people who are heading those big organizations, and so there was a talent which got drained to the US or to the other countries, but they would not have gone there if there are enough or bigger or equivalent opportunities in India. But I think Indian startup ecosystem is growing up. If not at the same pace, but at least things have started moving in the right direction. But the government has to do their bit. And again, I'm saying it is not the Indian higher education system, but the Indian government and the industry which is failing and pushing those talent to the US. Again and again, I say they don't go for higher education, they go for better opportunities to US and UK. And if we have those opportunities in India, I don't think so many of the people they're gonna go abroad for higher education as well.
Sumit, we'll discuss this issue next class also, the whole issue of salary, and because when we talk about the economic system. But I'm going to ask Aman a follow-up question here. Aman, are you suggesting that the Indian higher education system does not need to change or improve in any way? Or is that, I heard some of that there, or did I misunderstand?
So Vishal, I don't say that we don't need to change, but at the same time, I don't say that we are not that great that we should be missing on some great talent going to the US. And most of the people who go to US, which I hear around my in my environment, they are going for better opportunities. I mean, they don't say that Indian higher education is not great. I mean, people not say, here, hey, the studies are not happening in a great way, or the education is not great here. I mean, they will always say, well, I'll do, even if I do a master's in India, I may not be able to find the good opportunities here. I will not be able to find a good job here. I will not be able to get a great work environment here. So I think that's really pushing them, but I don't say that there's no scope of improvement. I mentioned that there's a globalization of the faculty which is required. Indian education system, at least the new universities, they are very practical. I mean, those gone were the days when people used to say that Indian education system is very, I don't know, the academic term is where people just gulp a lot of theory and throw it in their exams. But now things have changed. It's very hands-on, it's very experiential. The faculty is doing great. But I think with the globalization and exposure level, India needs to do a lot with respect to the faculty. empowerment, it needs to do a lot. I mean, faculty is not, in Indian institution, faculties are not empowered a lot. I think that to do with the I will not really blame the Indian higher education system. The faculty also has to come forward and say and take the responsibility. So I think if those things change, which is required to be changed, Indian higher education system could really go up. But I think it's not that bad where the people have to move in so many lakhs. I mean, we get a lot of students from Africa and SAARC countries where the education system is bad, or there are not enough seats, or there are not enough opportunities for the students. But India, it's not the problem. The seats are there. I think the education system is not that bad, but still people are going abroad. I mean, in lakhs, and they're not going because they're not able to find seats here, or the system is too bad. They're going there because there are better opportunities there. I went out to UK because I thought that probably I mean, for me, it was a different case because I eventually have to come back to India. And, but I thought that the kind of exposure I could get there, I will not get in India, but it's not the higher education system. I was more keen towards the exposure, not that I would get a great education there, but the kind of exposure I will gonna get in UK would be very different.
Yeah, I was going to say many young generations from the business families go more for the exposure. Ratan Tata famously went to Cornell, and I'm not comparing, but like you said, and many other business families, they send the next generation to sort of bring that international exposure back home. So, other questions from the class? Anyone else?
Yes, sir.
Anupam?
Yes, sir. Anupam here. Sir, I wanted to ask you, if you had to make some regulations, if you have to change some rules, then what kind of rules you will be implementing in India for foreign students?
For
For
internationalization.
higher
higher
education?
education.
Yes, sir.
Anupam, I would try to remove most of the rules and regulation, because I always say that you know what has happened with the airlines, with the telecom industry. When more and more players, good quality players came in, who benefited from it? The public got benefited from it because the prices got down, the services improved. Now I mean, previously for one BSNL connection, you have to wait for at least 2 months, 3 months time just for a connection. If you want to, I mean, take an airline from one place to city, and you have to pay a huge money, and not many people would have experienced it till the privatization has come. So, and then what also happened, that a lot of players who could not deliver that experience services, they vanished. In the end, so if the Tata, being Tata, could not do really well with respect to the telecom, because it's not that they were not following the regulation, but they were not providing the right experience or the services. Reliance could not the Jio part, but the previous Reliance Avatar, they could not do the business well because they could not provide the services well. So I think in higher education system also, I think we should give the basic benchmark, but we should not over-regulate the university, and let the market define the regulation. If I'm good, I would really grow up and do well. But if I'm doing bad, nobody's going to join my university, and eventually I would be killed, because the capital cost and the operational cost of running a university is huge and humongous. And if I don't do the right thing, I will be in the jail, because I would not be paying off my interest, and then I would be into bad debt, then I would be in NP, and then would be trouble. So I mean, so that's the pressure that the entrepreneurs or the Indian businesses or running the education system have. And if you're over-regulated, you're not doing any good to the business. So I would like to cut down on the regulation, number one. Number two, as if I have another avatar of the question is that if you want to bring some changes in the budget of education, what are you going to do? I would say, instead of using the political motivation, opening all the IIMs and IITs in different states and districts, I would like to say that I would like to strengthen those IIMs and increase the capacity. IITs have huge land area, huge infrastructure, but it is used for very limited number of people. I'm running an education institution, and I know that with that kind of resources, that kind of infrastructure, I could, if I have the IIT infrastructure with me, I mean, probably they were, let's assume they're teaching 2,000, 3,000 students. I could teach 10,000 students there in that infrastructure. So instead of spending too much money in creating another IITs or IIMs, I'm so sorry, I'm talking to IIM Kashipur guys, but that's my viewpoint. I would have strengthened the IIM Ahmedabad and other Lucknow or other IIMs and would have created them world class. We are not in the top. I mean, there are hardly any universities which are in top 200 list of the universities in QS ranking or the Times Higher Education ranking. I would like to strengthen my existing infrastructure instead of diluting my resources and creating more substandard. I mean, I would say the institution which needs a lot of more energy and money to develop.
Aman, I know we asked you for 45 minutes and we are already past that. So I'll bring this session to the last question. Given your experience, what advice would you offer to our students who will be graduating soon to work in a globalized world?
Oh, so your batch is a very interesting batch. You're gonna be. I'm speaking to the batch who's gonna be graduating 2021 or 22.
21, sir.
21. So interestingly, it's gonna be a very interesting environment when you're gonna come out of your classes and get into the job world or the real world. And I assume many of you are already into jobs. But it's going to be a very a different environment for you because of the COVID zone. At this time, it is most important that you build your skills and skills in the area of skills which are hard to find. An international business is a hard to find skill, at least in India. And I would say that, and the skill can be built up by reading a lot about various business opportunities available globally, maybe in whatever area you want to progress. Maybe it's consultancy or it's retail or it's telecom or whatever. I think you need to read about it because you have to be understanding that you have to be best out of the lot, because this is going to be a time when there would be lesser opportunities, more people going for those opportunities. And if you're not prepared, well, you could fall short of that opportunity. So prepare yourself well by reading a lot. Please interact with your people. I always say that you're as good as your network. Build your network. You are IIM Kashipur. I mean, please be very active on LinkedIn. It's very important to build the networks on the LinkedIn. And that does not mean just stall anybody and just send them a LinkedIn request, have a huge 1,000, 2,000 people in your LinkedIn, and that's it. I mean, you need to build people relationship, that as Vishal and I have been able to do that, and you can also do that. I think that's something important. Build your network, read a lot about the global opportunities, and third, which is very important thing, think big. Don't think small. That's very important. Think really, really big. As people say, aim for the stars and you will end up in sky. So if you want to do big, at least aim big, think big, and then only you'll be able to achieve something realistic and big in your life.
Among all the three things you suggested, I give the same advice to young people in America and in India and to my family members in Portugal, which is read. And it's amazing how many young people today do not read enough. So read, network, which is make relationships, and think big. So all your three advice, all your three input to the students, I think is very, very well appreciated. And thank you. Your time today is very appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishal. Thank you, Vishal, and really appreciate time from the students, and I've really loved interacting with them. Would have been great would have seen you face to face, but as time passes, we will see that as well. So best of luck, students. I mean, it's an interesting time for you guys. You're in a very, very safe hand. Vishal is a very strict academician. Please don't be. I mean, he would not mind giving you 0 as well. I've seen the complaints from the students. He's a very strict teacher. So I mean, but you're in a very, very safe hand. So thank you, Vishal, for inviting me today. And I hope I've been able to give some meaningful insight to the students and able to achieve what you expected from this session.
Yes, we did. Thank you, Aman, and have a good evening.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good day. Good evening to everyone.